Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron.
No matter how long you've been a developer, no matter how much you learn and how much you know, pretty much every day you'll run into something that stumps you, maybe for a minute, maybe like for an hour.
I mean, not some of us. I've never been stumped. As soon as I was born, I was a really good programmer. So,
Okay,
I don't think this episode has anything to do with me.
Except for you. Put yourself in the shoes. You're very empathetic, so you can put yourself in the shoes of a normal mortal developer. What would you do hypothetically if your code was not doing what you expected it to do and you didn't immediately know what the problem was? Like what is your thought process?
Well, I think, and obviously this is actually real and not hypothetical.
Okay.
Really, one of the challenges that I've seen developers and myself struggle with too is when you have a full process and something's going wrong, how do you troubleshoot a little bit of something right in the middle of it? And I always say the best thing to do is to simplify. Pull out just that little piece of code or that little action and try to run that by itself. So for example, let's just say you had a really just intricate designed HTML page and maybe you put a little bit more CSS in there. And for some reason that input box or something you just styled is now weird. It's got an underline. You just can't seem to track it down. Well, the first thing I'd say is go and remove basically everything up until like the body tag and just have your little section there and see, is it still doing that styling? And maybe, and if it is, then it's the CSS. So, remove half the CSS, remove half of it again, or just kind of start from scratch and really break that down because one, I know you're a current developer, so you're going to be using Git. So anything you do, you can just reset right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get the simplest thing, you can just start stepping through and trying to figure out how is this thing working or how is it getting this little bit of style. And maybe after you removed everything, it's fine. And so you start adding on things. And that's as you add on things, that's when you start to notice what's maybe affecting this. And, I'm telling you, this is really hard to do because, you're almost done for the day. Yeah, there's one little last line and you're like, oh, come on. I'm sure I can figure this out. And you've died and dumped in your PHP code. You var dumped. You console.logged and you're just like, oh, if I just keep doing the same thing over and over, somehow I'm going to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of discipline to do that. But I think that's the key thing, first of all, when we're talking about troubleshooting stuff is to break it into its smallest little part.
Yeah. So that's like a general process, if you will, for how to simplify it. Like now in the example you gave, so if I was following you, you're saying you had some rendered output that was different than what you expected, either visually or structurally or whatever. Are there any tools you reach for? I mean, obviously we're in a browser, so the browser itself has developer tools, but to kind of help you narrow that down, are there any intermediate steps or do you have any recommendations or opinions on that?
Well, I think one of the things I really lucked out was years ago. I worked with some guys that did programming on the AS400 or System I, and they opened up their editor and immediately started stepping through the code with a debugger. And I was just, a young hotshot developer, and I was like, oh, I don't need to do that kind of stuff. How slow and ignorant. And now as the years go on, I am always installing Xdebug or Zen debugger back in the day, DBG, any of those debugger tools to start stepping through your code in PHP and Laravel, for example. So, configuring your IDE, and a lot of them now can do that pretty easily and pretty quickly to step through your code, as well as the same thing as in those developer tools on a browser. You can put breakpoints in your JavaScript code.
Hmm.
You can use you can make that easier by when you compile your code, enabling JavaScript maps. Or if you want to you want to do the equivalent of like a var dump or something, or a DD in Laravel in JavaScript, you can just write the term debugger, and that'll stop the code and pop up the debugger right at
Yep.
that line. So that's super easy. You don't even need to track it down. Then you can just kind of say, I want to stop right here, and use the browser to step through.
All good advice. I only have one nitpick. Because
Okay.
you mentioned AS400, we now have a mature rating on this podcast because of how old that is. Sorry. No, those are good techniques. And I guess I've seen some developers resist Xdebug because maybe on the surface it seems complicated, or maybe they tried setting it up like 4 years ago and they could never get it working. So I'm not trying that again. But I agree with you. The tooling has gotten better. And once you've done it on one project, doing it on other projects isn't that hard. And even if it's not like the first thing you reach for, having that as a tool is incredibly useful in certain scenarios. I've even a little bit off topic, but I've even recommended it as a learning tool to like just step through a hello world in your framework and like see
Right.
everything it's doing line by line, and it's very eye opening for many developers, myself included. When I did it the first time, to just see like how many layers there are and how all the things are resolving and what's going on.
Right. Now, I'm pretty familiar with the development, like the local development and
Mm-hmm.
troubleshooting tools there. I know you focus a lot on developing or deploying software as well. Are there any tools or processes once we get past our local, desktop or laptop, when something's either in staging or in production, any tools or processes to do any troubleshooting there?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I think of is just knowing when there's a problem. So there's some common tools that will, catch an unhandled exception and report it. Bug snag, Sentry, things like that. And those will often collect a lot of information for you. You'll get a full stack trace. You'll likely get even lines of code where things happen, a snapshot of the request that triggered the issue. If it's a user thing, like what browser they're on, what operating system they're on, all sorts of things that might contribute to it. Ideally, it will also give you a way of reproducing it. So I know Bug Snag is one I like, and that you can right click the request and like run it as a curl against your local environment. And a lot of times that doesn't always work. You have to sort of set some things up to make that work properly. But just having a way to like quickly try to reproduce it locally. I will not fall into your trap and say anything about debugging in production because I know that you would yell at me. But having a clear workflow to like maybe grab a sanitized snapshot of production to run it
Mhm.
locally, play around with it. But yeah, to just know something happened in the first place, but then get some context from it that will help you go a step further.
So I want to be real about debugging in production too, because we talk about all these things, but sometimes you just get some just rusty old junk of a project, and you're like, I just don't have the time, or something's breaking now. I need to understand what variable is happening or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And every once in a while you come across something like that too in the live world, where you go to a page, click through something else, and all of a sudden you see someone's outputted like some variable to the screen. You're like, wait, what? Refresh the page and it's gone, and you're like, oh, there's a developer working on that.
Busted.
And yeah, I mean, I understand that happens sometimes, but there's still like, and we can't be perfectly like in the situation about hiding that, but we really should try. So instead of var dumping it to the screen, write it to a temporary file.
Yeah.
Get my variable in a file, put contents into a file in temp, and look at that. Or if you really can't do that either, at the very least, put the output inside of HTML comments so that people can't really necessarily get a hint that you're doing something.
Yeah.
Again, these are not great things.
These are
But
tools
if
of
you
last
have,
resort.
yeah, but if you have to,
Yeah.
don't just put it out on the screen, because there's always people out there looking at stuff.
Yeah, there are. I was logged into my American Express bank statement the other day, and I saw something. I'm like, yeah, somebody's messing around on this site right now. And what you just said
Hmm.
happened, where it went away in a couple of minutes. So Fun times.
Another thing we got to make sure we don't forget when we're, troubleshooting and debugging is the database performance too.
Mm.
What kind of experience have you had with that troubleshooting stuff? Maybe the database performance or the database tools. What have you used?
Um, well, I recently tried out a tool called Scout APM, and it had some useful metrics and reporting around performance in general, but even about database performance, where it might detect that this particular query was outside, was higher than the 95th percentile of what it normally runs at, and it would alert you to that. That can be okay. The problem is sometimes things are noisy and you end up turning those notifications off.
Mm-hmm.
But just like if you're using MySQL, there's a slow query log. Like just understand what that is, turn it on, even set it at a relatively high threshold, and then periodically check it. That in itself, that's free, doesn't cost anything, and it's a useful way to find things that are running, more than a few seconds that you want to isolate and dig into further.
Right, and you can use something like describe to
Sure.
look at how that's performing.
Yeah.
Good, yeah, good idea.
One maybe final comment on debugging that's not directly related to the process of debugging, but in the if you're like me, in the steps of trying to solve a problem, you will search on the internet for somebody else that has had that problem. Maybe you will even type in a specific error code or message that you're getting, and frequently you'll end up in something like Stack Overflow or places like
What's
that.
what's Stack Overflow?
It's all .NET. Um, no, it's built in .NET. Anyways, but this happened to me. The reason this is coming to mind, this happened to me last week, and I found somebody that had the same problem as me. Unfortunately, there were no replies other than one guy saying, "Hey, did you ever figure this out?" And the original post was from 2 years ago. So I'm only mentioning this because while that was disappointing, I did persevere and I figured it out. But then I took 5 extra minutes and I replied to that poor fellow that had posted it 2 years ago to just make the internet a better place.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you
Mm-hmm.
feel about that, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, that's a way that you give back because in open source and a lot of the stuff we're doing, we learn from other people. We use other people's projects and products, and maybe you don't have the time to program something yourself and give back or something like that. But you can answer a question, and for every single time that you think, "Oh, that was silly," no one's going to have that same question. Remember, that was you. You had that question, and there's other people that are just like you. A year later, they're going to be traveling that same path. So answer those questions and try to give back.
Yeah, that's your good deed for the day.
So there's one big difference between men and women that I've noticed, and that's when women say "smell this," it usually smells nice.
Okay. All right. I'm thinking.
When's the last time you're hanging out with your buds and you're like, "Smell this, it's great"? No, it's usually something horrible. But that really gets me thinking and like questioning, like, what are your thoughts on this? Like, what? And I know you've done it because you're human. We're all human. When something's horrible or tastes bad, you're like, "Oh, this is horrible," and then you offer it to someone. You're like, "Oh, this is bad. Try this." Why do we do that?
We don't want to suffer alone. Sometimes there is like the shock value of, I can't believe how bad this is. You have to experience it. So it's an act of kindness.
Oh, kindness. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's like when people say when you're going through a bad time and someone says, "If it makes you feel any better, I just stub my toe," and you're like, "No, I'm not a monster. Now I feel bad about my own stuff, and I feel bad for you and your pain. How would that make me feel better? Now there's two of us in pain."
But you're in pain together. That's the point.
Yeah, misery loves company.
Yep. But the point about the difference is I can totally relate to that because I can't remember the specifics, but I do remember there was something fairly recently that I asked my wife to smell, and it was a good smell. She's like, "No way," because normally it would not be. So
right,
you called that one, Aaron. I think it's just because we're nastier, but that's just my take on things.
Are you not sure where to start with your debugging?
We can help. Get in touch for a free consultation at our website, nocompromises.io.